You are listening to the new man beyond the Macho Jerk and the new Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Should you settle in your relationship? Do you ever wonder if there's someone out there who'd be a better fit? And could raising the bar too high leave you alone forever? Today, Alyson and I dig into the idea of settling in relationships. We talk about what it really means to raise your standards, how we sabotage relationships, and why it's tempting to focus on someone else's flaws instead of facing our own fears.
Okay.
Hi.
We were talking about
Instead of doing your podcast.
We were talking about ice as a sexual, using ice sexually.
If you had cold things on your body, is that arousing, or are warm things arousing?
No, cold is not arousing for me. But I did have a buddy in college, and he had a person that he would be with, and she would blindfold him, put headphones on him, and play that. I don't even know the name of the song. It was like this.
Comfortably Numb?
No, it wasn't. It was this kind of. Anyway, I can't think of the song.
Feel the Noise?
No, it wasn't Feel the Noise.
I could go all day.
Yeah. Protect your neck.
Thriller?
It was this like sexy song, and then she would use a piece of ice on his door number 2, shall we say?
Wow!
And he would tell us about that.
And then would she peg him?
I don't.
Like gets a little bit area numb a little bit first.
He didn't share anything about getting pegged.
I wonder if they had that word back then. Like if that was a term that was used.
I think pirates did. I think pirates used that word.
Do you think they used it in the same context?
No, I don't know about that, but I mean, there's all kinds of shit happening on those boats.
That's true.
You're out at sea for a
while.
You're
out at sea. A bunch of men out at sea.
You're like, hey.
Testosterone. A boat full of testosterone.
Let's just do this. We don't have to tell anybody.
Take my leg. Take it. That's where that came from. It was actually originally the sexual sounds.
Well, we're off to a strong start. What is this? Okay. What are we talking about today? Oh, okay. I know. Hold on. I got a thing here. This question is from a listener.
A listener.
Yeah. And his name is let me think here a second. Frank Sinatra.
The Frank Sinatra?
Sadly, no. It's not the Frank Sinatra. But he goes by, his name's really Francis, but everybody calls him Frank.
Oh, okay.
But
Francis Sinatra. Okay.
And he writes in, he says, by the way, he's...
what does Francis do for a living?
He's an AI. He uses AI to clean aquariums.
AI to clean
Yeah, he comes
aquariums.
into your home and he cleans your aquarium.
I would think that AI would not go well with water.
You know, that's where we fail. Our imagination fails us. We just can't comprehend.
That's what he said.
We just can't comprehend the wave that's coming.
That's what he said. That's what landed him the position.
Yeah. So he says he's a big fan of the show. He even enjoys you. He says.
Even?
Yeah. And
well, I'm glad.
I could see where that was a little backhanded.
Well, it is a show for men, after all, and you've been having a lot of female voice on the show lately.
What's happening to this world? But he says he's got a concern. He says, he has a big fear of he doesn't want to settle in a relationship. He doesn't want to settle for a partner that is not the person for him. But nonetheless, he wonders if that fear of settling is what keeps him from actually, like, how does he know that he's, not just using that to just kind of go from one person to the next? And so I think that's a great point, because if someone could easily justify that they are not settling if they, what's going on over there?
I feel a burp.
You want to just go ahead and let it rip?
I don't. It's not ready yet.
We're on the pirate ship. You can just...
It's not ready yet.
Okay. Yeah. So he's essentially he's concerned that using not settling could keep him from ever finding anybody, like never finding a person, but also like somehow it keeps him from really ever having a strong relationship.
Is he in a relationship now?
No. He's not in a relationship now.
So his question is like, should I settle, or he's just afraid, afraid of settling?
I think that I think what he's describing here, I'm paraphrasing here, but what he's describing is the concern that this fear of settling in the relationship could easily be justified to never be in the relationship. Like he just keeps finding things wrong.
Yeah. For sure.
And of course, nothing's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so, he just keeps going on down the road. And I think this is a great point. I think we should explore it.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Because I'm wrestling with this right now.
Especially based on what he said about even with Alyson, he appreciates the show even with Alyson.
This is something this is personal for me.
It's very personal. All right. Well, I'll talk to you as much as I talk to him.
Thank you.
I'll start by saying no one can check every box.
Oh. Well.
And I think that's a fair question. I know plenty of people I've worked with clients. I can think of friends. I can think of people that I know in the community. At least a dozen people that I've come across in the years that this conversation has been up and for them. And
should I? Let's get specific about what that conversation is.
Well, there's two. Yeah. So the conversation starts with the question of like, is this person the person that I really want? Like they don't check all the boxes. Mm. And so does that mean that this isn't the person that's right for me?
Okay.
And so
am I setting the bar too high for a person? Yeah,
it's very I think it's really common to fall into kind of a fallacy or a trap where, I mean, it especially is with certain demographic of people, females. I don't know if males do this, but females definitely are like, he's not worth it. Like, oh, just you can do better. Like there can be a lot of that, regardless of what is actually happening in the relationship or what the guy is actually bringing.
Like I could always be doing. I think there's a FOMO there too, which is like could I do better?
So that's kind of, if we looked at it as a spectrum, that's definitely on the spectrum. I think of a client who kind of was perpetually thinking, he could do better.
And I've worked with people that, that are dating, and the dating apps. There's always here's new opportunities.
Always,
so it's just like, gosh,
what about this person?
When do I turn off the faucet of new opportunities and just say, hey, I'm going to go for it with this person?
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the places people get stuck in that is it's the lens that they're looking through. So there can be sort of this perpetual have-not kind of thing, like what you just said. If there's like this constant faucet of like who might be available or who might be better looking than the person, who might have bigger breasts or whatever it is, like who might have more followers if you're into that sort of thing, and you want somebody with lots of followers on your Instagram.
Wait, to date somebody because they have more followers?
People do that.
You do that?
I don't know. not even on social media.
You fucking star fucker.
Actually, maybe I do that because you're on social media and you have followers.
My 400 followers. Yeah.
You said your podcast has been downloaded millions of times. So I think I'm a star fucker.
I just tell you that. So you'll stay around.
Like, I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to check. Anyway.
Go check my stats. Let me add something else because we're kind of setting context here, which is there's also the type that maybe they actually don't want to settle down with somebody.
Yes.
Not settle for somebody, but they just actually they're not comfortable being in relationship. And so the tendency is to find things and be like, oh, well, see, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, that I wanted to talk about that. I didn't know where to talk about that.
And then they can use, I'm not going to settle as a justification for that. It can sound rather noble to say, see, I'm not settling.
Yeah.
This person had this, aspect to them. And so I'm doing the right thing.
From my perspective, the people that are doing that, not everybody, I mean, I'm mass generalizing, but the people that I have known and worked with that have a version of that going on, generally speaking, it's their attachment style that is driving the dynamic.
All right, so a lot of us don't know what attachment style is.
So how you fundamentally got wired when you were really young in terms of if relationships or the world is a trustable place and relationships are safe and you're safe, you feel like you can settle with another human being in the room, or you can
settle, meaning calm down.
You can feel calm and comfortable and safe with intimacy with another person, with any kind of exchange that happens with another person or other people. If you're someone that has that, then your outlook on relationships is going to look really different than someone that never got that experience consistently. Somebody that didn't get that experience consistently may feel anxious, may feel uncomfortable, may feel like they can't stay like in a intimate space with another person. They have a hard time staying.
So without realizing it, attachment theory helps us understand that how we experienced relationship early on, very early, as very young people,
0 to 18 months,
pre-verbal.
Yeah,
that we learned at that point whether a relationship was a safe place or maybe not so safe, or it was chaotic, or whatever. There were certain things.
If we can, if we learned if our needs will get met or not.
But nonetheless, we still have a desire to be in a relationship. We still have a desire to connect with others. But then there's this wiring that says, wait a second, this may not be okay. And so I think it's important there's free tests online. You can kind of figure out your attachment style. They're kind of fun or depressing, depending on what comes up.
I've never taken one.
But you might find, I've known people that have done this. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was the one doing this. And this kind of explains some of the things and how relationships occur to me. And it can be really enlightening in that regard. And it doesn't mean you're broken or anything. We've all been kind of dinged up and dented from time to time. So
too bad you don't run ads. This would be a great time to plug whatever test you talked about. You just talked about.
Anyway, so but what you're saying is that if we don't understand our attachment style, we can use someone's flaws to justify. I don't feel, if I don't feel good in relationship, then I'm gonna look for an opportunity to eject.
And I think that's somebody that's like using their savvy, like they're using their brains to do it. I think it's so fundamental that people might not even be able to come up with reasons, but that it's just not right. Like it doesn't feel comfortable.
So things are going great and and even
Something's
like
not
things are
right.
going well, and then I was like, oh, something's not right here. I've got to kind of get out of this.
Yeah, and things going well, like there's kind of, from my perspective, depending on how kind of extreme this can be in a person, there's varying degrees of extremity here, but depending on how extreme it is, there can be this like dissonance of like, I want what's like, is this right? This might be right based on an ideal or an idea, wherever they got that idea. But because they've never felt that place of settled, calm, nervous system regulated place,
at home here.
It's never right. Like you can't, on a visceral level, it doesn't feel right.
So it could check the boxes in terms of like what it looks like, but it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And so then, and then, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who's very intelligent, smart person. And the reason I'm saying this can be a gray area is because, she can justify 6 ways to Sunday why this person is not right for her, but it's really her attachment style. Like, she's the avoidant one. She will always kind of hold whoever is close to her or getting closer. She will put them back at arm's length. Okay. That's just her style. And so not knowing that can cause a lot of suffering, I think, for people.
Okay. So on one hand, there's this attachment aspect of like not recognizing where we're the ones that are creating distance and pushing people away simply because, and having compassion for ourselves. Like, it's just really uncomfortable being in.
Totally.
Having closeness.
Yes.
Right? Like that can be.
Most people aren't in that part of the conversation, though, when they're assessing the person that they're deciding whether to be with or not.
Right. The view is, I'm going to look at them and look at their flaws and look at what's happening over there.
Right.
I imagine we could also be kind of self-sabotaging. Like, well, I don't measure up. I've heard this too. It's like, there's something wrong with me, but it's still superficial. Like, there's still this, like, I don't deserve to be here. They're going to leave me later on. There's this weird, I've heard that thing come up before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, the classic one is, can happen whether you have attachment stuff or not, which is like, they don't know the real me yet, or they don't know my deep, dark, shameful secrets,
if you really
or they don't know that I have this gross mole, or they don't know that I'm thinking of somebody that has alopecia, and they're terrified of getting in. They want to be in a relationship, and they're terrified of when they get into a relationship, there will come a day where the intimacy gets such that, or their partnership goes to the length that they're going to have to reveal that they're balding. Like, they have these spots on their head, like they're wearing a weave. And so there's deep fears that have to do with, will you love me? Will you accept me? Will you still want me? Based on some of these things that aren't, culturally acceptable or maybe not pretty or sexy or whatever.
Yeah. So, that's a physical aspect of that, but there's a lot. I'm very aware of guys playing a role in order to be
also
attractive.
That, for sure.
And it's not who they are, and they know it's not who they are, and nonetheless they feel like they've got to be this
everybody
guy.
does that mostly everybody does that at first. I mean, that's kind of just what you do.
Okay. But just recognizing that we want relationship, and then there's also a fear that once the relationship crosses a threshold, we're going to get to a place where we really start to get to know one another, and that will be dangerous. That will not be a safe place. And so we might start to look for ways to sabotage or push somebody away, or keep them from doing that. And one of the ways that we can do that is be like, well, I'm not settling. This person isn't the right person, and I just want to kind of bring some context. So if somebody's out there dealing with this, they can maybe recognize the whatever kind of path they might be looking at.
For sure. And the only what I want to say, like, this, one of the reasons why this is a good topic to talk about on something like a podcast is that it's such a deeply personal conversation. Like, it's such a deeply personal decision.
Yeah.
This has to do with each person. Every single person has their own path and their own kind of constitution, their makeup, their attachment style. They also have their own lifestyle. So there are people that based on their lifestyle they might want to prioritize work or travel or something else other than partnership in their life. And so choosing to just simply have a person that fits that checks the boxes of someone that is a companion, someone that is support, that is a source of support, companionship, and that creates a sense of security, that might work really well for someone. Whereas for another person, there might be a much greater need for like an alignment with long-term goals, or what's an alignment with priorities or shared activities or even shared values. And for another person, it might be like, for me, I couldn't be with somebody who was shallow. I have to have interiors and depth. So they're like, for another person, they might want a lot of emotional intimacy and interpersonal intimacy and depth. And for another person, they might not want that. They might not even, like, that's just not on their radar. They just want somebody to travel with, or they just want somebody to play tennis with, or what. Like, it's like there's lots of different reasons that people choose to partner. And so I think that it's real. The reason that I wanted to say that is because most people, the word settle can kind of get stigmatized in a negative way, like purpose. Like, purpose can become so positive that we lose the plot of what purpose is about. And so settling can be like that too. Like, if somebody thinks another person is settling, there can be a negative connotation when in actuality that might be perfect for that person. And I would further just like to circle back to the attachment thing. In the case of my friend, who her attachment style is to create distance, it's actually good for her to practice not doing that, to practice having somebody there even when she pushes them away, like they're going to stay. Yeah.
I want to dig into, because there's another aspect, which is I can keep people away if I raise the bar and I have this checklist of what a person should be. And I imagine there's a process around that, which is kind of sussing out, is this, by raising the bar to this degree, am I essentially sabotaging myself and my ability to have a relationship? And then there's another part of this, which I think is what you're starting to get to, which is really getting clear, like, what is the aim for having a relationship? What works for me? What am I really hoping for? And for a lot of us, we don't really ever do that. We're just trying to solve the problem of, I don't want to be alone, and I just want to have somebody fun to hang out and want to screw. Like, it really starts at a pretty low level.
Well, and I just have to interject, because that's actually part of the, like, nobody checks every single box, and nobody can be your ideal, because your ideals change over time. Yeah. Like, if you're 20, who your ideal mate is going to be really different than when you're 40 or 60 or 80.
Yeah. I never thought I would
here we go.
Date a 51-year-old. Ever.
I know.
And here I am.
And there's your side piece. She's 51, because you're married to someone. So who are you dating that's 51?
I told you I'd go younger. She was like 2 months younger than you.
I was going to say, I'm 52 this month.
All right. So there's lots of ways. I guess I need to find my thinking here. So there's the attachment stuff. We want to learn to recognize where we have a tendency to push people away and convince ourselves that we're doing it from a place of higher ideals. But really, we're just playing defense.
Yeah.
And then I think there's an opportunity there to, like, what is it that we really want? What is it that we really want in relationship? Yeah. What does that look? And I like to play the game with my clients. What would you be excited to commit to? Mm-hmm. What would have you excited to commit to a person, and really just a path? Like, what are you guys creating? Yes. And what I found is that when the relationship encourages greater freedom and expansion and aliveness, they're really on board. When we think of relationship as a place that becomes limiting and a trap and like, I'm stuck.
Right, the have not.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Why would I want to commit to that? That sounds like a drag. And so I love to help people get into that place of, what would be expansive? How could the relationship encourage greater freedom and an expansion and aliveness in that regard? And then we might start to reveal the attachment stuff. It might be like, oh, it's still spooky. Here's a person that supports this for you.
Right.
And yet you've still got a foot on the brake. And that can be an opportunity to highlight the attachment work and work with somebody like you or somebody else and then heal some of that work or get some tools around that.
Yeah, just as much as somebody that doesn't have that and wants to create a great relationship, but they find themselves in places of frustration and dissatisfaction and they don't know what to do with it. But they're on board to create the great relationship. They've decided they want to be with this person, but they're stuck in some sort of frustrated place. So that's a great place to work with me too.
It also, when we start to name what we want and put it on the table, it invites it's like, hey, it's an invitation. Hey, what about you, right? What would be exciting for you? And ideally the person isn't just like, whatever you want, I'm fine with it. It's like, no, that's not a good answer. It's, really what's the win for you? And what that will challenge us to do is get into a place of co-creation. And that may be difficult for some people that just want to kind of stay in the kiddie pool and kind of trot from one lily pad to the next, because that's fun. It's fun to just kind of go through the new and the exploration, and then when things get
unboxing,
just do the unboxing thing. But the real, like, okay, this is what I'm working on in my life. This is what I'm moving towards, and we're going to work. And you've got yours, and we're working on this together. Then there's the work. There's the work that requires, and we might realize, I don't want to do the work. I just want to do the shallow unboxing thing.
Right.
But I don't need to say I'm settling or I'm not settling or something like that. That you can just own it. Like, I'd love to unbox shit and then just go buy another one and unbox the next one.
Right.
Or if there's a fear or something underneath there that gets unpacked. But I like this. What am I really playing for? What am I really wanting? And starting to bring that to the table, because it will start to reveal what's in the way.
I totally agree. Like that, I use that as a kind of a navigational north with people as well. And what that tends to help people do is it's like a values alignment exercise, and it helps them figure out, like, well, is deep connection important to me? Do I like and want connection? What are my fundamental needs? What are my greater wants? What helps me feel alive? There's that conversation. And then there are people that don't know. They're just young enough to where they don't know yet.
Yeah.
And so I think that part of what can help unpack that for people is notice if you're feeling like regret and resentment with somebody, right? Like that might be a tell. If you're wanting something more, so if you feel like you're constantly compromising, there's a saying, there's a saying that, like, you lose yourself in a relationship. So
like, what do we need to do to preserve the relationship is far different than how does the relationship serve each of us to continue to grow.
Yeah, and
that's a very different
and
orientation.
Those kinds they can be little, kind of death by a thousand cuts, or they can be big. But those are things, I would say, those are like tells. Those are places where you can start to practice some self-reflection, awareness on, like, I'm noticing I feel resentment right now, or I'm feeling regret, or I'm feeling dissatisfaction or frustration or whatever. And it's not just because they are doing this or they're not doing that. I'm pegging it on them, but what's going on for me? I think another place.
There's that word pegging again.
This is highly personal as well. As I talked about, like, intimacy might be not a value for somebody where it is for somebody else, but emotional connection versus disconnection. So there can be, if there's a significant lack of emotional connection or attraction, that can be a deal breaker for people. Now, there are people in the world where that is not on the list.
You can tell by how they dress.
Be nice. But for for the people that matters, attraction and emotional connection matter, then the relationship may feel like more like an obligation and a burden than something fulfilling. Mm-hmm. So these are places where you can. He just for the listeners out there, he keeps making faces at me because I tend to have a wardrobe when I go in my garden or when I'm just in my house clothes that they're like old raggedy clothes, and he calls them. I should have a big sign on my shirt that says whatever. What is it? Is that it right?
Just like, or you don't need to give me money. I'm not homeless. Something like that.
I like my really old clothes.
I
They're
have
comfortable.
A house. I have a home. I'm good. You don't need to give me money. I sleep indoors.
Yeah. I sleep indoors.
Believe it or not, I sleep indoors. Something like that.
Okay, good. I'm glad. You're just highlighting what matters to you. That's good. So that's a whole different conversation, but how to navigate what matters to one person and what doesn't.
Should we unpack it now? You think we should?
No, I want to finish my point, Tripp Lanier.
Okay, sorry about that.
So the other thing is, people don't know, like when they want to, like what you were saying around unboxing, like if you're young enough or if you're new enough in relationship, your sort of arc of journey with the journey in your life with like different relationships and maturing and what is relationship for you? What do you really want? The aliveness and the freedom and the love and connection, all of that is so new that kind of different. You're going to want to, as I've said before, like play the field, and you might want to try on different things. And the reason for that is, I think if you can stay with what has you feeling excited and open and, alive and engaged, that will lead you to lots of different personality types and lots of different experiences. So that may actually not just help you feel like you're having a more fulfilled life, but that might also lead to finding a human, another being that gives you a fulfilling relationship. So consensual being a relationship. So.
Well, I wanted to speak to that because some folks do marry young and they stay in relationships. And so their development can kind of the relationship can kind of find its foothold. And it would be easy if we're unconscious to say, hey, what are we doing to protect the relationship? Or what are we doing to kind of keep things in the comfort and the familiar zone?
Yeah.
Instead of coming back to, okay, we are continuously evolving. We're not the same people we were in our early 20s or even in our 30s. So just recognizing, like coming back to like, where is aliveness now? Where is expansion now? What's going on for you? How can we be partners in that? How can we be supportive of one another in that, instead of you wanting to change or explore in other arenas, even if it's just having hobbies or things that take you out of the house, or it can feel like a threat. Mm-hmm. And so that can be a place where it's like, oh, I'm settling. My partner doesn't understand my desire to go travel or doesn't do these things, instead of let's just talk about that and how can we support each other in that. And ideally we feel supported by our partner to explore and enjoy the world within, certain agreed upon structures, let's say.
Well, and I actually want to kind of back up and zoom out here, because you just said, ideally we want a partner that, right? And I want to acknowledge, like, this is I agree with you, but that's our personal bias, right? There are people that may not think or feel or believe that partnership is really about helping you, yourself, and the other person live their best self, their best life. It might not be about growth and challenge and new experiences and new depths. It might not be about that at all. It might not be about any of that. It might just be about stability, convenience, structure, safety. So
I would say that they agree on that. And that works for them.
Usually when people decide to do that side of thing, it's either out of fear or convenience. And so,
but if they're listening to this,
chances
are there's a rock in the shoe, and it's bothering them, and it's been bothering them, and there's a one. Am I settling? Is this right? Am I making, am I raising the bar too high? Are my expectations for my partner too high? Like, so if they're listening to this, I want to help them come back and find a North Star for them.
For sure. And even if they're searching for, they find this because they've been searching, because inevitably every human will go through at least once a point in time where they're kind of facing their existential existence, and there's like this life review of like, am I living the life that I need and want to live? And that is super like in your bones. That's going to show up at some point. And so when that can happen, those kinds of choices can come back and bite you.
Yeah.
And most people will then turn
the choices made from comfort and fear,
the condemnation onto their partner, instead of back up, zoom out, engage their partner and invite them into this life review type conversation, and rewrite the values in the partnership around, hey, I still want to be with you. Yeah. And I'm noticing that I need more. I want more. I want more of this for me in my life. And I want more of this for us in my life. And that is usually not a one-off conversation. That sometimes takes time because the other partner might have been just flitting along happily in their as things were. So that can be where there can be a big pull.
I think the one thing I want to speak to is that when we use terms like settle, it's vague. Mm-hmm. And so this idea, am I settling? And then I can go into a place of, it's selfish to want more. We can just get in. We can really mind fuck ourselves.
Oh yeah, it's a big mess.
Whereas if I can get specific about what I'm wanting, even if it's just the experiences I'm wanting, I'm wanting to experience more of this, less that,
and those needs too. Like I think there's a thing around like really being willing to out yourself on what your needs are.
Yeah, and to take it like it's not my partner's responsibility to give that to me. Right. But perhaps it could be my partner could be supportive for me to go and create that for myself in my life. Okay. And I think that if we can get specific, and the question is not so much, am I settling? The question is more just like, what would have me feel more expansive, or what is it that I'm wanting, or what is it that I'm fearful of? And to bring those things to the table and then start to be able to discuss them, whether it's with your coach or whoever you're working with, and start to lay those out. And then ultimately there's a conversation to be had with your partner.
For sure.
And that can help you see whether or not you're doing the self-sabotaging thing, you got some weird attachment stuff going on.
Exactly.
It can also just help you see where you're really are limiting yourself. You're putting you're stepping on the brake because you're afraid to disrupt what you've already got. But I wouldn't want to move out of this kind of vague, am I settling, and into just more of the specifics. And then those are all workable. Like let's just start to see how we could go about, allowing more of those things into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. This may not fit for the younger population, but one thing that I learned that I borrowed from Gabby Reese, I think that's is that her name, Laird Hamilton's wife?
Yeah. Wow.
So
good job.
Did you interview her?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So after somewhere around when you interviewed her, I think it was for her book or so I read her book and I really liked it. And there are tidbits of wisdom in that book that I just adore. I won't go into all of them, but one of them I have borrowed and continue to use with people that I really, it fits well for people that are in this kind of conversation with themselves and maybe their partnership. She spoke, and this, I'm rusty, it's been a minute, but essentially it's like, make a list of your top 5 deal breakers. Like, whatever is on that top 5, no matter what else happens, if those happen, if the 5 things, and one of those 5 things happen, you're out. The relationship is no longer happening. And for me, I did that practice. And for me, it would be like affairs, like that kind of thing, broken trust in big ways, like that sort of thing. treating being abusive, treating somebody with disrespect, and that kind of thing. But in her book, she says, make a list of those top 5 deal breakers, look at them, know them in your heart, like whatever goes on that top 5 is coming from your core, and then see that everything else is workable. And I love that because she's right. Everything else is workable. That can be your attachment style. That can be figuring out what it is what matters to you and what doesn't. That can be just like wanting deep connection and not knowing how, but like, feeling afraid of it. Like all that is workable.
I want to emphasize workable because what that says to me is that is a conversation to be had.
Absolutely.
Not I look the other way and I just stomach stuff. And because I think that is part of what settling is, which is like, I don't really like this. In the
negative sense, it can be making concessions that we don't really want to make.
Like I tolerate this thing, but I don't speak up about it, or we don't talk about it.
That can create resentment.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff it can create a lot of poison.
Yes.
But workable to me means we're going to figure this out together. Yes. And work through this together, but it's not something I'm just going to sweep under the rug, so to speak. I think there's something that's active about it,
Absolutely.
And it's above ground instead of, no, I'm just going to tolerate this, because if as soon as that resentment and contempt starts to take hold in a relationship, it's really, really hard to turn that around.
Well, and I think now you're speaking to kind of what I do and work with people. Some of my work with people, which is like, now it's no longer about this relationship. Now you're in relationship with your contempt, or you're in relationship with your judginess, or the lens you're looking through, and you've actually left the relationship because you're not talking to your partner about it. Mm-hmm. You're just hanging out, talking to the negativity with it. And there's a million variations of that, but yes, to the concept and the definition of everything else is workable. Essentially, how I interpret that is those 5 things are what have me leave the relationship, stop being in relationship. Everything else has me stay engaged in relationship. With whatever needs to happen.
And it keeps things from being like, it's got to be perfect all the time. And
Absolutely.
It's like there will be these challenges, but we can work through these challenges.
For sure. Yeah, and keeping that true north again of like, why are we working through these challenges? Because there's plenty of partnerships, oh boy, I know lots of them where they're like, they want to do this work, and then they get into it and they actually lose sight of why they're doing it. And then it's like, this is just too uncomfortable. Why are we even doing this? Like there can be that. And it's like, whoa, what are we doing this for?
Right.
So yeah.
Great.
Any other final jokes about pegging? You want to weave in?
Anything you want to say about pegging?
No. Is pegging a deal breaker for you?
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.